ain't nobody watching.
we're good.
Ready? All right. It's called this meeting to order the Public Safety Committee meeting on Tuesday, December 17th. We will call to order and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Full house today, which is great. Roll call. We'll start. Mr. Mayor,
Dan Ehlers, Town Council.
Todd Capella.
Kieran Farrell?
Don Thomas.
Jim Bagoulas.
Jim Nickel.
Ron Bennock, Thomas Yazo.
Wonderful. All right. Public comment? Nobody. Approval of the minutes from November?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from November.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The minutes are approved. Let's go reports. Did you want to start with Mr. Chitwood?
Good morning, Lieutenant Chitwood from the Lee County Sheriff's Office. I don't really have anything to report for you this month. There's been no significant activity, so I'm here for any questions that you guys may have.
I have one question.
Sure.
I guess this has to go with traffic. So we had the sand sculpture event, and I just don't know, did the town plan ahead and have people here, meaning, traffic safety people? At the end of the event, it was like it was a mad dash, everybody left at the end of the day, and that traffic sat still. And I, cause there was an RV right in front of the parking lot that we were working, it sat still for at least 40 minutes, nobody moved. And I understand it was a lot of cars leaving, but I just wanted to make sure that going forward, when we start having these events, that we know that something's gonna happen at the end of the day, that I don't know if you guys were on call, if it was just kind of like nobody had planned ahead.
There was a security detail for
Okay.
that, but I don't think they had a
Did
traffic
traffic.
detail
Okay.
applied for. So that would probably be something that I would think the staff, when they submit the application for the permit, would probably have to say, hey, these are the things that we wanna do.
Yeah.
And
I'd
then-
like to add that only because people were driving in the middle of the road. I mean, people were starting to get mad because there's no movement, so pretty soon everybody just goes, I'm gonna go right down the center lane. We had 2 lanes of traffic leaving the island, and that was the only way they were getting moving and cutting people off, so,
Madam Chair, I wonder if it would make sense for the Public Safety Committee to maybe give direction or ask the Lee County Sheriff's Office for their suggestion on events like that, of what they feel would be needed for traffic detail,
That'd
that
be
you can
great.
make a recommendation to council, that they add it to any special event permits like
that's what I
that.
was gonna say, okay. So can we, ask you to, let us know what you would need us to provide you for like a special event, something like that? I don't
So
know how-
the process is, when you guys have your special events,
Mhm.
or any special event happens in the beach, a permit request has gone through the town,
Right.
and they send it to our details coordinator
Okay.
at the sheriff's office, who, they review it initially, and then they do give, they send it to the Third Precinct Command to kind of just take a glance over to make sure it looks okay, because we have more contact with this area. So if on the initial process that went, because if it comes in, it says we need security, and if it's not an event that we're real familiar with, like I don't think we've had a sandcastle event in several years, so, but knowing now that this year we had a traffic issue, going into next year's event, just something for the staff to go, hey, we're gonna be, these are the problems that we have during this event. People, drinking outside of the designated areas, then we know, okay, these are the issues that we need to deal with. And then traffic control, either arriving or departing, stacks up, and that way, in the planning process for how much manpower we'll need for the event and what type, we can plan that way. If it just comes in as, hey, we need security,
Right.
we may or may not know that there's also gonna be a traffic issue, so it would be the request on the front end saying this is what we're gonna need, because without knowing exactly what the event's gonna do, then we may not have the inside knowledge to send the right people.
I would think the next big one is Shrimp Fest.
New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
And New Year's Eve.
Well, I could tell you, I think the biggest bottleneck I saw going around the island that entire weekend was the people coming off of Fifth trying to make that U-turn
Yes.
to go back to Times Square, and there was nobody there to make them
no.
continue on, and it would stop traffic for 10 minutes
Exactly.
while they were waiting for traffic to come on the island to make that U-turn. So that's probably the biggest bottleneck I noticed.
So would you recommend that since those permits for fireworks and Shrimp Festival are already in, would you recommend that I need to come to the next town council meeting and bring it up so that it goes back to town employees, so then it goes back to you? Because I do think we're gonna have to address it.
So I can just say with fireworks, that's an annual thing that we've had a long history with.
Okay.
So we're already done with the planning for that,
Okay.
we're already ready to go for that.
Okay.
Shrimp Fest is already on the radar for
Okay.
planning, and again, even though we had a couple of years of downtime, it's an event we're very well familiar with and have a huge plan for.
Okay.
So it's things like that
Okay, we're
we're
good.
okay with, but it's
Okay.
little more, little ones that maybe don't happen as often, that we don't have the insight on and what it might or might not do, and we all
Okay.
can, a reminder is always good for us, so.
So do we have any visibility to what permits have been applied for? So we can match it up to say, okay, these are the ones we get covered, these are the ones that we don't have covered?
At this point, all I know of is, like, New Year's Eve was applied for
Oh.
at least a month
Fun
ago.
Club.
Yeah, 'cause we
And
have-
I imagine Shrimp Fest will probably be coming in January or February, early February, maybe.
Okay.
Probably more January is when I usually see them about a month and a half out, so. And again, I've already got it on my board at the office. I've already got all the events for the next year written down, so I know to be looking for them and planning. So, but the smaller ones that we may not have, lined up already or not annual, those are the things that we could use a reminder on, just to be aware.
I have a little insight in this.
Okay.
Just for the permit for that Sandcastle event. That permit came through our permitting staff. I had a piece in that. We did request, because at first there was no police request at all. So we requested that they have people downtown, and we also requested through. Now, understand, we have the final say in some of the permit to it, but it's moved past us in some respect too. So they have to send the request to the person who's asking for the permit. The town doesn't send it to them,
Okay.
to the PD. That comes from the person who's doing the permit. So we have our pieces that we say okay to, and then that gets moved on. So there was a request made from PD. We can't force them to hire them for different things in that event. With the New Year's Eve stuff, the town creates their own IEP. They have their own IEP, and we do it with the fire department too. So we have a plan in place. That's kind of a tried and true one. With the smaller events, that's something that we could touch base on with the council and have the requirements more locked in as opposed to being so discretionary as to what we allow. That would be my recommendation to that.
And Mayor, when you talk about that specific problem, that sounds like it's probably something we can address from a direct patrol perspective, not necessarily through a permitting process, because that's probably something that's happening more often that our guys need to be aware of and
Well, I
address.
think that's adding to as we're coming back into seeing, we're starting to see more and more of that center lane become a passing lane.
Okay.
And I think now adding that to it, it's gonna, I saw a motorcycle the other day drive down the opposite lane, probably a good mile and a half, just to bypass the traffic, because the turn lane wasn't there. So I just hate to see someone getting hit, but I know that's on your guys' radar every single year, but we're starting to see it earlier and earlier, at least this year.
And we did put a request into the DOT monitor who's handling that construction space over there to extend the traffic barrier up onto the bridge a little more to kind of control that space. And we are using rangers when we have the staff at Crescent and Fifth, as we wait for some more signage to come in, let people know that there's one way is not a stop at all. So we're putting a ranger there for traffic duty, and these guys also have had people out helping us to keep that moving, so we can keep people moving on the northbound side, getting off the island. But, we can't control the other side by the bridge, that's why we want more traffic control there with barriers and different types of barriers, type 2 and 3 would be better, but we're working on that with them.
It looks like they're trying to change the traffic pattern there a little bit when you come around that bend. Looks like they've extended it up the bridge a little bit.
Yeah.
So maybe their plan is to
That-
extend those cones up to force them up the bridge a little further.
That was our request for safety, is that they stop because it is confusing for some people, and some people get nervous when they go, oh, I have to get off the island now. So they make that U-turn, and that U-turn does create some real hazard and some safety issues. That's why we put it into them, to cones are not really that effective. You need some type of barrier space
Yep.
that's gonna really lock it in.
Tom, I can't recall, is there signage along Crescent indicating Times Square straight ahead as opposed to
No.
left
Not
on
yet.
Crescent?
Not yet.
No, I know we ordered that, right, Mr. Mayor? I know some of that stuff was ordered.
I was told it was ordered, I haven't seen it up there yet. Some, it
exactly
was supposed to have Times Square straight ahead and through traffic doesn't stop coming the other direction. So when you're coming,
Right,
you know, south on Crescent.
yeah.
it-
And there's a
it's
sign that
supposed-
says
there's-
oncoming
There isn't,
traffic.
but there's going to be one
Okay,
to tell people that the traffic turning left onto Fifth does not stop.
because people are still stopping there regardless.
There's, well, that's, yeah, part of it. Everybody's coming to a complete stop at the, I know when we've had rangers down there, or if deputies have been down there directing traffic, it is
Oh, yeah.
certainly, it certainly helped the traffic on it. I mean,
A lot.
There's still traffic, but you never stopped. You kept rolling at least. So you notice a significant difference with somebody standing there,
Exactly.
moving that traffic from stopping.
Agreed.
Tom, back to the permitting requests. Is there a I mean, if they're coming, if like these smaller special events, like whether it's a little music fest or something that could turn into a big deal because maybe the person who's gonna participate in it has a big name and all of a sudden you have lots of people wanting to come to an event that maybe wasn't on the radar, initially. As it comes through your office, is there not an opportunity there for you to flag that and say, we're gonna require either more security or more traffic, control with this event than the event people are suggesting or asking for? And, you know, it seems you're in the best position to make that judgment as it pops through your section there. And you could either get back with the event people and say, you're gonna need more traffic, or we're not gonna move your permit forward. I mean, it just seems to me like that's the perfect spot.
Requirement's a tough word. We can request as we go through. There's certain things they have to meet, and that comes with insurance and everything. So as with that event, the initial request was no law enforcement. And I pushed back to our special event person and said, we have to have law enforcement, extra law enforcement when we're talking about the possibility of another 10 to 15,000 people on the island. We should have some people who can back up the regular precinct deputies who are here. So that was our pushback on that. Individually for traffic, I did ask for that, but that never seemed to come to fruition.
It seems, with all due respect, it seems a little improper, or at least, the town should have some say-so over this traffic situation. I mean, once those people leave the property of the event and they get into the street, I don't believe it's just my opinion that the event holder, while they certainly could contribute to that, but it seems to me like it's the taxpayer that should be taking care of getting that traffic safely on the street and off the island, either coming or going. I know historically, maybe we have tried to hold the event person responsible for traffic control on the island, but that seems like as was in the case here, it's hit or miss whether you get the cooperation of the event holder to do it. And I think there's a high degree of public safety interest in getting people safely, once they're on the roadway, safely on or off the island. I don't know, I guess I'm seeing it as more of a town or county responsibility to get that traffic safely off, once they're on the roadway. Now, if there's a private parking lot, people at the event, security at the event, I can clearly see where the event holder could be held accountable for making sure that people, we have enough security and safety personnel there. And I think as soon as people hit the street, it's either the town or the county's responsibility then to get them safely on or off the island. That's just my personal view of it.
I
Well-
don't disagree. We have to I have to dig into the permitting process through that, and I would have to come through the council in some respect too.
Well, this was a chamber event as well. They need to know better as well.
Right.
They were anticipating a certain amount of things, so that's on the chamber as well. So whoever's doing the permit for the chamber next year, and which this is easy to do, to call the chamber and say, you need to make sure that when you have these events, that we're trying to bring people to the island, you need to start thinking of traffic as well and work with the town and
Right.
everything. Okay, anybody else?
Just one build on that traffic as well. What I noticed, I was sitting in that traffic, was that there was a person with the flag by Beach Bar, stopping traffic.
That
running
was
out-
my group.
Yeah, stopping traffic to allow cars to go through, and I think just observing, like, I don't know how if that was someone that was trained, or like if that
No.
was part of the police department, or part of the town, or if
I
it
can
was just
answer
someone.
that question,
Yeah,
Jim.
go for it.
So,
Here we go.
the nonprofits ran the parking lots, and we parked over, well, we parked a lot of cars, let's put it that way. And we couldn't get anybody out, the traffic was not moving. And so we really did take it upon ourselves, and we would go out and stop traffic, we had flags, and say, let these people out, otherwise, it was a complete standstill. And so the goal was to get people in, get people out, but again, when they were going to the south end of the island, it was wide open. When they were going north, starting by 2 o'clock, you couldn't get off the island, it was complete standstill. Again, goes back to Chamber needs a request, we're anticipating X amount of thousands of people coming, and it started on Thursday, that we need to have sheriffs lined up at certain spots. And, I don't blame all the town, and I don't blame the sheriff, I do think that it's if you think your event's gonna bring X amount of cars, you need to, let's start thinking a little broader here, especially for groups like the Chamber or the Shrimp Festival, or if we do a parade on the south end for St. Patrick's Day. Again, these are the types of things that this island used to do that would bring the people in, and they're going to come, and we have to plan ahead.
Tom, you may want to consider they hire the women's club group to do the traffic control.
Yeah.
There was
I'm gonna
no,
put this on
there was
public
nobody
record.
messing with those sassy women, I can tell you that.
Sue
There.
Patton was the best person ever, if you
Yes, sir,
ever would
Mr. Mayor,
need
we've
someone.
done that.
I mean, we had people, we stopped traffic literally left and right.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Oh, there were people who were like, yeah, not worth the argument. We'll
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
Fine, whatever you say.
Yep, so,
I was here, I saw it.
it was very good. And we made a lot of money for our charity, so that was great. Okay, I think that's it, Lieutenant. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday. Chief?
Good morning. Committee members, Scott Worth from the Fire Department. You have the report in front of you. I'm happy to say it was a fairly quiet month. I did look at the trauma type calls. We had one bicycle that was out at Pine Ridge in San Carlos area, so it wasn't on the island. And then we had another trip and fall. So as far as our significant trauma type calls, that was pretty much it for the last 30 days. So that's good news for all of us.
Very quiet. I have a question. Literally the day after we left, we had an electric bike incident last month. But I didn't understand the full context of it. Was it on the street? Was it wrong way? Was it, I never heard the whole details. Everybody just said after our
Heard the
meeting.
call because it was, I think, the
Literally
same
the
day.
same day after we had the
Yeah.
lengthy discussion about electric bikes, someone got hit on
I don't
electric bike.
remember where it was.
I know it was on, I think it was by Red Coconut. I
Okay.
think, but I don't know,
I don't
so,
know details on
alright, and we don't know the details.
That was by Diamond Head.
Diamond Head, okay. On the sidewalk, on the street.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about it or not, but it was not the person driving. Let's just put it that way. From what I've been told, it was on the bicyclist
Bike.
was, yeah.
Okay, okay. I thought it was ironic. I don't have any questions, anybody?
Nope, good report.
We're good.
Alright,
We, just for your information, we will be coming out of the ground with a new fire station first Monday in the new year. So
nice.
look forward.
How long will that take?
They're saying 14 months. I'm trying to push them to 12. So somewhere between 12 and 14 months.
That's exciting.
That's pretty
If
fast.
they're saying
That's-
14, they mean 19.
Yeah.
They haven't dropped dead deadline. So with the state helping us, there's a hard deadline. They'll make it. We got a good contractor. So
Nice.
Is that right? Construction is doing? Yeah.
And you'll be on the back side of that, of the Tops parking lot, or in the
we're
front?
going to be right up front. We're going to be going out onto Estero Boulevard. Originally, it was going to be on the back.
Yeah,
but
that's what I thought.
The new design with just the fire station, it'll be on the front of the property.
Really good.
Yep.
Very nice.
So there'll be some visibility there, which I
There'll
think
be a
is
lot of visibility. It's going to be
excellent
nice.
for the fire district and the town, you know, give you a sense of pride and ownership in the town itself.
I'm looking forward to people walking by and seeing the doors open and coming in and visiting.
Very cool.
That's how it should be.
For lunch? Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bring in lunch, right?
Yeah.
Chief, is it still your plan to keep the administration office until?
We will keep that. We have the other property over on Main Street, so that we have to design and build that. And then once that's done, we will look at our operations at that point. Most likely that piece on Voorhees will be sold.
Okay.
But that's a nice building.
Yeah.
It's paid for, so we'll look at it at that time.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you. Have a good holiday.
You too.
Okay, staff update, I guess. Tom, you get to go next. Do you wanna wait, do you wanna go as we go along, or do you wanna do an update?
Hey, it's gonna be fairly quick.
Okay.
We're continuing with the progress with the e-bike, working with the council on how they wanna roll with that. I know the last meeting, there was discussion about maybe breaking it apart between the beach and the sidewalk. I don't know that we've had any conclusion to that, but I know we're moving forward. We did have one other incident with an e-bike, coming southbound on, going back to that discussion with the council. They were southbound on the northbound side, on the sidewalk. Young lady was on the bike, she lost control, didn't hit anybody, she hit a park bench right by the library. She ended up having some pretty good injury to her leg. Her family transported her to the hospital. We did a quick incident report, just basically that she was there and got basic information, and the family transported her out. We recovered the bike and brought it back to the family at the place they were staying. So that's about what we have for the e-bike. Other than that, our rangers are out all the time, still working on the beach, doing what they do. We are picking up some of the traffic stuff at the direction of the council, the mayor, for us to try to help with traffic in the areas where we're having some issues. But for the most part, we're doing beach to bay. We're trying to hit everywhere down the neighborhoods as well. Just letting us be seen, let people see that we're there, and if they need anything, they can contact us, ask questions as best we can, answer them.
I'm sure you have to get back up, cause other things will come up. Perfect.
Okay?
Thank you. All right, so our next discussion is about the electric bikes. So we did talk about this last time. One of the things that, we were kind of waiting for you, Dan, and Tom to come to the meeting, because we didn't wanna say, hey, we're gonna do all this stuff, and you're always like, well, we discussed it, we can't do that, or we can do this, we can't do that. One of the ideas that we came up with last time was, if we're allowing the e-bikes on the sidewalk, if we could put some type of writing on the sidewalk that shows that there's a bike, that allows bikes and people, you know how you'd have a walker and a thing, we don't have to divide the line up, or divide the sidewalk up, but as a notification for people who are visiting the island, to know that there are gonna be people on a bike, it could be people on a bike going with you, and then also an arrow showing if you are on the electric bike, you need to be going with traffic.
On any bike, you should be going with traffic.
Any
not-
bike, right, any bike, anything, but, and then we also talked about making a discussion, there used to be a rule where you could not be on your bike in Times Square. Do we set those same rules up for the high-traffic sidewalk areas, which I would say starts around the beach, well, maybe a little farther than the beach bar, but let's say around where, Hooters was, all the way in front of Lani Kai, all the way down to Times Square on the left-hand side. And on the right side, there's tends to be so many people walking, and that you see people trying to navigate their bike, whether it's, you know, a regular bike or electric, through there, and it's just too many people, and where we say, at this point on, you have to walk your bike, unless you're in the street, and then you can ride your bike.
Well, there was some discussion about that at the M&P meeting on, obviously, there was talk about, you know, radaring people, and the LCSO has told us that that's just no way to be able to do that. As far as the bike markings, we've tried to go down that road with the county, because they own the sidewalks, not the town. Remember when we were talking about putting them in the bike lanes, the
Right.
green markings and
Yes.
stuff?
Yeah.
And they did the one test one by Beach Baptist there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we were, you know, we
We
did
got
the
that
ones
thing.
on North Estero Boulevard, and we
Right.
were trying to get them, so they did the test one for us, and we were starting to get some ground with Lee County, and then obviously the hurricane came and it's
Right.
put everything to the back. So my suggestion would be for this group to put together a formal request to send to the county to ask them to do that,
Okay.
as well as send it to the town council to send a recommendation that we support your recommendation. So that way it's coming from two groups instead of just one. And then if, you know, Lee County Sheriff's Office wants to help with that, if they think it's a good idea, I can certainly reach out to them and ask. But we would need their permission to do anything.
All right.
You know, I don't think it's necessarily a big cost issue, because I think it's a good idea, you know. I always think about when you're going through the airports and they've got the moving walkway and it shows you the stander and the walker,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Same thing.
something like that. the problem we've heard from the county in the past is that people, I don't want to use eye fatigue, but like eye fatigue, people get just too repetition of looking at it. That's why they, similar to the crosswalk signals when we were originally talking about the beacons for every crosswalk, they said eventually people just get numb to seeing them and they don't realize that they're there. So putting them at every single one doesn't make sense. So if there's a way we can do a hybrid with them, at least, or maybe we do a test section, I don't, to me, it makes sense to have arrows showing this is the direction. That's what the town council had talked about, because the Lee County Sheriff's Office, that's something they can enforce. They can see an e-bike going the wrong direction on the sidewalk. That's something that they don't need a radar gun to do. So that they seem to be okay with it. We haven't made a policy decision on that's where it's gonna go. There's also been discussion about getting off and walking in the sections that you're
Yeah.
talking about, because the bike lane actually is the road, that you're supposed to share the road. It hasn't been decided one way or another yet.
If we need to get data from the town, for example, what I would put in my proposal, or our report, or to our formal request, would be the number of visitors we have, that it fluctuates. Like, for example, in the month of February, we go from 3,000 residents who are using the sidewalk to 10,000 people a day. These are new people who are every day that don't know our rules, and so that's where I would say our eye fatigue. This is new people. They've
Right.
never seen it. They don't know the rules. They don't know what we're supposed to do. We've got people visiting who are renting a house that have no idea of the rules, that jump on a bike and run around. So would I go to the town to get like some because you want to put some numbers in there to say this is how many people are being affected by this and that don't know. So it's not, we're getting the same, it's not like me walking the street every day. It's someone new every week.
I think I think you can get data for short-term rentals. I mean, you could use hotel rooms from the TDC numbers.
Got it,
You could use, short-term rentals. Those people are always using bikes.
got it.
That would be a good starting point. As far as putting a specific number on how many people use bikes, I think would be very difficult to do.
No, I just want to get some facts in there.
But I think if you use that, and every month we're getting more and more and more
Right.
short-term rentals back, so that's gonna continue. There's discussion of how do we get the bike companies to up their education standards, or the short-term rentals, do we make it a requirement that in order to get your short-term rental license, that you have to show your information that you're going to do to try to fulfill the laws that are required in the town? Again, we haven't made the policy decision. It's supposed to be coming back before us, I think, in January,
Okay.
for just specifically about the e-bikes. But I would start with the county when it comes to the sidewalks and potential markings, and maybe do a little research to see if there's any other places in Lee County that they have that. I know they have them in Naples, I know they have them down in Collier County, but I don't know that there's any I've seen, at least on the sidewalks, for the bikes. Usually there's bike paths, so people, you don't need them, but this is a little different, unique.
We are.
Okay.
And I wonder if it makes sense for us to, in the recommendation, almost discount the eye fatigue thing, because like you said, there's only 3,500 people on, and we're residents, and we should know the rules.
Right.
So we can get away with some eye fatigue, but the 30 or 40,000 people that come down here from May, or from January to March, eye fatigue is not gonna be a thing from them. So,
Well, I think it's important to stress safety. The biggest concern I've heard with the e-bikes, and I'm sure you guys have as well, is people don't feel safe in the narrow bike lane. I mean, thankful that it's there, but during busy season and with all the construction we're dealing with and vehicles going back and forth, I mean, we've all seen the trucks pulling the trailers that don't go around the bike lane, they just drive through it. Or they're
It's
not
not
paying
just trucks
attention in
and
their trailer. I know, but I mean, you can control your car, but sometimes you forget that trailer sticks out a little wide in the back, and so people don't feel comfortable riding and maybe it's just a temporary thing until we get through major construction. Give it a couple year test to see how it works. But I would stress in your letter the safety part of it, because that's something that usually gathers their attention pretty good.
Okay.
Anytime we've had requests, before Chief Worth was here, with the Linnell crossing light, the fire district was very good about co-sponsoring a letter with us saying, here's the data we have showing this crosswalk is dangerous, and that's part of the reason we got that. A good majority of the reason why we got that Linnell crosswalk light beacon down there was because the safety issues that were reported with hard data from the fire district.
the other question we had was the R2P2 study.
Yeah.
If that had come in, and if there's a share out on that, that possibly this committee could take a look at and read.
Yeah, so the final report just came out, I believe it was at our last meeting. So it's available online. There's a link that you, at the town's website, you can go look at that entire report. It does talk about bikes, it talks about through connectivity, it talks about stuff like that and potential things that could be done. So I think there is something, if you wanted to take a look at it, that you guys could pick up and offer suggestions, especially with where we're at and trying to make connectivity for bike lanes or for bike traffic or pedestrian traffic through the neighborhoods. So they've got some good information in there, I think, that you guys would be interested in looking at. They didn't mention, I remember a while back, we were talking about, I remember who it was that shared that. It was in the original 2017 study they did for the bike, the MPO study that was done for the bike things. Then there was a picture in there of those bike racks, those vertical bike racks that you could take your bike and it condensed the space. And I don't know if you guys remember those. I'd be interested to see if those weren't in there, but I think that would be kind of something neat that you could do along the way to have a space to. They were covered. If you remember, they were like little covered sheds that you, not sheds, but it was open, but it was covered, so you could pull your bikes in and you put them this way instead of this way, and then they lock in place, so it takes up less space.
Okay. Well, I'm more than happy to start something, but then, do I have to email everything to Jason and then everybody makes their comments on it for a proposal, for a formal request?
I'm not the attorney, but I would suggest that would be your best.
Okay, I'll start something and then everybody can add to it.
Yeah, if you send it to Jason and he sends it out, or Amy, they send it
Okay.
out, and you can. Better to
Okay.
better be on the side of
For
caution.
somebody, okay. I think crosswalk messaging is in the same boat of this. It's really just getting people to know they need to stop for the crosswalk, you know?
Well, I know the town is looking at, I've got to talk to the town manager on it. We had talked a couple months ago, again, we'd given him direction to start looking at doing Estero Boulevard, the landscaping along Estero Boulevard, to try to drive people to the crosswalks as opposed to just walking through the vegetation area. And then Helene and Milton came, so things got sidetracked a little bit. So we'll pick that conversation back up. I think that could help with the crosswalks. You know, getting that knee-high, whatever, something you could still see over to keep, you know, not what we had before. I don't know that anybody liked that low-lying, grassy, weedy stuff that we had before.
No.
We've got the money that we received from the county to be able to fund it, to maintain it. So there was talk about potentially doing trees. I know they were looking at working with the garden club to come up with some native plants to put. I think my opinion is we need to really take a look at doing something that acts as a barrier. It's not just plantings, to keep people from just walking out in spaces that they're not supposed to walk, to drive them to the crosswalks and they'll use them. So if you know of any recommendations, or I think that would be something that this committee could do, if you could get together some visual examples of places that have done that, to be able to create that barrier, hedge barrier to, I mean, if you just look at what we had on North Estero Boulevard before the storm, that was a perfect, in my opinion, a perfect example. There was a sidewalk that was safely far enough away from the bike lane and the road that kept people from cutting across North Estero Boulevard. You would see them use the crosswalks, but you wouldn't see them cutting across. Most people aren't gonna jump over some hedges to cross the road. They're gonna go to where they know they can go.
Does somebody wanna take that on to find some examples of,
I would
barriers?
start with the old pictures of North Estero Boulevard.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of good examples down in Naples. They've got it down there as well.
If anybody wants to take that on, we can add that to our proposal to.
You're just talking about barriers in the right of way, right? Is that,
Well, you know, between the sidewalk and the curb,
yeah,
the
the
non-
grassy area,
the gra-
dirty,
well,
whatever.
yeah, it's, you know, I think most
Yeah,
areas it's like this
right of
big,
way,
the right of way area.
Yeah, okay.
There was talk about putting some trees down there for some shade canopy. I think is a good thing for safety as well, especially in the summer months when it's super hot. We've never had shade canopy down Estero Boulevard, at least that I can remember, to keep people that maybe get overheated from walking or biking a place to stop and get out of that sun a little bit. So any suggestions, pictures you could send up to the council as a recommendation, that help ignite that conversation again to start getting that designed. And I'll follow up with the town manager too, to make sure that that's still one of the many things on his radar.
I think we had talked about at one time putting some signage as you enter the island that reminds people that they have to yield, vehicles yield to pedestrians in a crosswalk. Because that's not the case in other places in Florida and maybe other places in the United States. The pedestrian has to wait for traffic to clear and then cross if there's not a control device. On our island, it's different. Even without a control device, if a pedestrian comes up in a crosswalk area, the car is expected to yield to the pedestrian. It's the opposite of what most people are used to. So if we don't tell people, and again, we have these, 30,000 visitors from all over the world, they are not gonna envision that they're supposed to stop and allow that pedestrian to cross. And so it would, I think there should be signage at each end of the island that says,
Yeah,
you know.
maybe during season, Tom, we could look at getting, one of those digital signs like we have for when the bridge is closing.
Yeah.
Might be something the
Yeah.
town could do.
vehicles must yield the right of way to pedestrians in the crosswalk. And I think someone would go, oh, that's different, because it is different.
Yeah, we see it all the time, people waiting at the crosswalk patiently, cars just zinging
Zipping
through.
right by, yeah. And I think it would just help prevent a potential problem in the future.
Well, at least if it gets through to some people, certainly will help.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of my question, is that I always thought that the law was that the vehicles must yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. So with people just standing on the curb there waiting, I don't know that that's the way the law is written. If you're waiting on the curb, it's once you're in the crosswalk, then you have to stop for the pedestrian.
That's my understanding. I don't know, again, Mr.
Right,
Lieutenant's
we
not
don't-
here
yeah.
anymore, but that's how it's been explained to me, is if you've got 1 foot in the crosswalk, then
Right.
you have to yield, but if you're just standing on the,
Because there's a lot of
Corner
times
tech.
that as I'm driving down, someone's standing there and I'll stop. Hey, go ahead. Oh, no, I
yeah,
Go ahead.
okay, sorry. And then I just continue on.
Yeah.
So I think that's, the law is once you're in the crosswalk, which,
It probably
Yeah.
is. In most cases, you have a traffic control device, a light or a button or something. They
Right.
push, and then so when the light turns, they cross. But when you have an uncontrolled crosswalk, legally, you're probably right. Until they enter the crosswalk, the vehicle is not required
to stop.
to stop.
To yield.
But we typically do just what you said. I think at least people that are familiar with the island, when they see the family gathered waiting to cross, we stop and let them
Yeah.
cross. And then the outsiders from, Michigan look at us like, are you nuts? What are you doing?
Is it really the safest that we're different than everywhere else?
We're,
I mean, if 99.9% of the country is one way and we're the other way, isn't that a danger in and of itself? Shouldn't we kind of bend to the way everybody's used to doing?
Well, that's my point, is that I believe we are the same as everybody else, that you yield once you're in the crosswalk. But we've all gotten used to stopping to let people go, where visitors that come here don't. And so that's where the hiccup occurs.
and the inherent danger of saying, well, I see this car coming, but I'm gonna enter the crosswalk, and I know he'll stop, and he
Right.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Because he's not anticipating you to just step out into traffic. He's thinking you're gonna yield to him. So, if you have a controlled crosswalk area, that's not a problem.
Right.
But in these uncontrolled crosswalk areas, I think we would just be wise to remind people, and I think the reason why we're different is because we're, a unique area, where lots of pedestrians are here, and we don't have a lot of control. Like in a downtown area where you got a lot of pedestrians and cars, every intersection's controlled. I mean, the pedestrian crosses when the light changes. Here, it's not like that. And I don't think we want stoplights at every crosswalk.
I don't.
I don't. I think it just would clutter
But-
everything.
But I have to say, we've got things now that there are certain places where the crosswalks will do stop, but we've got areas now, particularly around Times Square and where all the construction is, where people are just running out in the middle of the street, and there is no crosswalk, and people are slamming brakes on. this is part of my discussion, you've got the walkway that, Margaritaville did down their stairs, and what's nice about it is it's a nice little meandering, they use the, orange, guiders, let's call that, little fence, to guide the people to where the old crosswalk used to be. But nobody is used to anybody crossing there anymore because of post-hurricane. And so we're coming off that bridge, it's pitch black, and you might see all of a sudden you're on it and there's two people standing there. If they, I guarantee you somebody's gonna get hit one of these days, cause you don't see them. And just to say to someone, cross, and the traffic will stop, they're not gonna stop, or if they do, they're gonna, it's been close call after close call.
Well, and at night, especially at that one spot right there at Times Square,
You can't see anything.
no matter which direction you're coming from, your headlights are pointing away from the inside of the curve.
Yes,
So if somebody's on,
you don't see
in that
them.
inside, you have no chance to see them.
It's really bad right now there.
And on the last meeting, we had talked about putting temporary lighting, since the lighting project is still underway. How do we, in Times Square, by that
Do a
construction
couple little
site,
things that we can light it up
Yeah.
a little bit.
especially where there is pedestrian crosswalks,
Yeah.
where there intentionally need to be, that's where you need to light it.
They're crossing at, here's another place where Dan was saying, instead of exiting the island and people are turning left, you've got people leaving and standing there and doing Frogger, trying to cross right there. That's another place where people are running across in the middle of the day, and some traffic stops, cause they're used to stopping, going right by.
In this area where we should, in my opinion, would have been helpful to coordinate with Margaritaville if they're gonna bring pedestrians down from their establishment, and they built that nice little walkway, wherever they take it to cross the street, we should have put a crosswalk there so that we could protect the citizens crossing the street.
Well, that's what we need to put then in our request to Lee County, because that's Lee County's road right there.
Even if it's just temporary, I mean, because
Well,
that's temporary direction by Margaritaville.
Where that orange barrier is, that takes you to the crosswalk.
It does go all the
At
way.
the-
Yeah,
it
does
comes
go
all the way to the
The
crosswalk.
problem is, there's no one manning the crosswalk, A.
Right.
B, great point, they've got us turning this way, so you don't see them at night, and you don't even notice that somebody's there, and a lot of times if there's nobody in front of you and you're going over the bridge at 35 miles an hour, all of a sudden you go,
It's DOT.
yeah, there's something, there's like, oh my gosh, there's a person there. During the day, yes, you can see them a little bit, and you're going a little slower over the bridge, and you kinda get.
I think that's something that Tom just said, we could
Get
we
with
could
DOT.
send a request to DOT. Now that we're outside of turtle season, lights can go
Right.
back up there. And I think you can, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, I think you can put those lights on a timer,
You can.
so at a certain time of night they shut off.
I think that would be fantastic.
Just so you know, too, the crosswalk laws are statute, they're state statute, it's 316. And that statute requires the pedestrian to be conscious of it, and if it's a marked crosswalk, which as long as they're marked on the groundway, they don't need flashing lights and stuff, traffic has an obligation if someone steps into the roadway. That's how the law, the statute reads. So, I will make that letter to DOT and find out about trying to get some lights down
That'd
there.
be great.
And I know,
That would help, I think.
we're gonna have lights down there for New Year's Eve and like we did last year.
So I have another, well, since we're talking about, kinda going over all this stuff, when you come off the bridge with the DOT, and I just don't know how this could work, but you're walking over the bridge, we've got the walkway, you've got lighthouses to your left. They're wanting to put some crosswalks there at the base of the bridge as per the design. Is there a way that we could have, if you're going to, let's call it the downtown district, that there's that cut under the bridge, that you can get there, that we can use similar to the orange walkways, or the orange guiders that Margaritaville used? So you come over the bridge, and you hook a hard left, and you go back under that bridge that way? Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, but that's private property to the best of my knowledge, so we'd have to contact Lighthouse and see if they'd be willing to
I was
partake in
gonna
that.
see if we would, like, if there's something that we could work with, how cool would that be to have, we direct people, you wanna cross, or you're going to Nervous Nellies, or you're going to somewhere that's not to Times Square, you're going that other way? It's just this little meander, you come out that way, and you join up the other way.
Yeah, I'll build on that, cause I was looking at the exact same thing. It should be part of the bridge. and it shouldn't be touching the lighthouse
It
parking
could
lot.
go over it,
It
yes.
actually could be above it. And,
Oh, yeah.
so, I mean, we were hoping that FDOT would come in and talk about that project at one point, but we haven't seen them. So that was an idea we were talking about in previous meetings is if you wanna go straight, that's fine, go towards Margaritaville, or you kinda loop down another ramp on the bridge that takes you down,
That's
so
a
that you
great-
go
yeah.
underneath the other side. So that you're not now forced to, cause if you come down the bridge, if you wanna get over Times Square, now you gotta stop traffic to get across. How do you come down the ramp,
And you just go around.
just rotate down all the way down to the
That's a
lower
great
level,
idea.
then swing around onto the other side, so you.
And then you're not back
No
taking the proper
bikes,
path.
yeah, bikes aren't trying to cross the street to go to Times Square, pedestrians, you're directing that traffic flow.
How dare you apply common sense?
I actually thought about that like a year ago, walking over the bridge to go over to Bonita Bills. Like if there were like spiral staircases or something, because right now,
that way,
if
yeah.
you wanna go from the island side to Bonita Bills, you gotta walk all the way to Main Street
Yeah.
and turn around and come all the way back to it. If there were
Just a ramp.
just a ramp or a spiral staircase that went straight down, the advantage of a spiral staircase, you don't have to worry about bikes. Just down you go,
Till you trip.
but you can, well,
It's ADA issue.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah, ADA would
Well,
be a
even
big
if they
thing.
had a ramp that came down, I mean, there's so much room under that bridge, I don't know how we can propose that to FDOT. I mean, we're trying to be smarter, we're trying to make it safer.
Yeah, I don't know, thing that I saw at the base of the bridge, now that they've started to do you could see the crosswalks through it. Maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I always thought that the drawings and the renderings showed that there was going to be plantings there to direct people to the 8 crosswalks that they had. But now I see they're all filled with concrete. What's the point of having a walk? People aren't gonna follow the yellow brick road, they're gonna walk across that concrete, and they're gonna cut the
cut
corner
across.
any way they can, so I think we should reach out to FDOT about that, because I've always thought that the point was to direct the traffic to the crosswalk spots, but if you're gonna fill the whole island in with concrete, cars are gonna drive over it, you're gonna have people making U-turns there. I don't know. Tom can look into that, just goes along with what you were saying at that point.
Yeah.
I have to check the right of way in that space, I'll have to see what our right of way is, because we have control underneath the bridge, that's part of our leasing agreement with FDOT for us having the parking spaces. So I'll have to check to see the row and see what we have in that space and what Lighthouse owns.
Yeah, I don't know what the right of way is from the bridge to the lighthouse.
I don't know either, so I'd have to.
That would, I don't know if that would fall under our agreement or if that falls under the state's agreement.
That would be pretty slick. Especially after everything's under construction right now, to have something like that.
I don't know that they will attach a ramp to the bridge, that's a whole nother engineering monster or stair or anything. So, but the easier answer, I guess, would
Be a ramp.
yeah.
You could do an aluminum ADA ramp.
That's what I was
something
thinking,
to the side,
something
so-
simple,
Something.
and we test it.
That would have to be a request, I think, coming from the council at some point, but I can do the initial inquiry to see what they're interested in and what they'll be open to.
I'm gonna add that to my request to the town council. Okay.
Might be something, whoever is in the weekly meeting with FDOT about that roundabout area, maybe that's something that could be brought up in that, I think it's a Thursday meeting they have.
Yes.
If you need anybody from safety, we can come too.
Yeah.
It is common sense. Okay. Well, then we kind of talked about FDOT messaging. I guess that goes hand in hand. Once we get some more of these, what they're doing, I think the messaging comes out right now. It just keeps changing every day. Are they gonna put new sidewalk in on the Gulf side between Times Square and Margaritaville soon?
Not soon. To me, what it looks like, and I've not been in the meetings with them every week, so I don't know, but to me, what it looks like they're doing is, we raised the concern with them when they first started about having to use Crescent and Fifth and how it was gonna really have an impact. They said there was concerns without, parking their trucks and doing things like that. And I don't know what their schedule was, but what it looks like to me is they're trying to accelerate that exit lane. They're
Okay.
trying to shift the traffic over to the closer to Margaritaville because they've got that curbing in, and it looks like they're getting ready to do some work there. So to me, what it looks like is they're accelerating
The right side.
the right side, the Gulf side of Estero Boulevard, to be able to stop using that. So we could drive straight off the island instead of having to go through. So my guess is that's probably not a high priority. That's why they put up the orange markers to direct people.
Sure. I just see people, they leave, like go where Salty Crab was, and then they walk, it's kind of rough there, and then they're going in that patch of sand as they're trying to walk to Times Square.
Well, and maybe when you're reaching out to them, Tom, maybe talk about barriers and directing people. Maybe there's some barriers that are put up to try to, I mean, you're still gonna have the people that walk out into the street and do what they're gonna do, but just, for the most part, I've seen people going across that crosswalk and trying to use
They have,
and go
yeah.
over, but now you're sending them across traffic twice, right? You're sending them over here and then you're moving them back. Maybe it'd be a better idea to talk to the county to see if we can create a orange barrier system on that side of the road to use part of Crescent Park,
Yes.
or the barrier of Crescent Park to keep them on that side of the road to
I
help
think that'd
stop
be a
that
great
back and
idea.
back.
Could we just put the mats down? I mean, that'd be just like the mats that used to go out, the
The
beach
Moby mats?
access
Yeah.
things. Just,
So it's a little more stable for people
it's
to
a
walk.
little more
That's where you
stable and
notice
it's also
people are-
obvious, and that's I mean, people
Yeah.
are gonna walk down that instead of trudging through loose sand.
And it's,
You know-
I think this is something we can do, as long as, it might be just a simple phone call to the county manager to say, can we use the town's right of way on this side of
Yeah.
their Crescent Park? You know, Crescent Park fence could be the one side of the barrier, and then put orange barriers on the other side. And if we need Moby mats to go through the grass, we could certainly do that.
That's a great idea. though.
And then you just keep the traffic, the foot traffic on that side of the road, instead of making them cross twice.
And you do notice that with people who are older or have trouble walking on the Crescent Beach, on the beach side, that it's a little unstable. It would be nice to have
Well, and they're
that.
working there too, so it's not.
Yeah,
the
and when they keep
safest.
changing, it's shifting a little bit, I get that, and we're trying to be, but the mats would be an easy move.
That's something I think could be,
And then you roll them up when we're done and,
Yeah, and you're done.
reuse them in another
Exactly.
area.
right.
Aren't you so glad you came this meeting, Tom?
Of course, always.
Okay,
More notes, more work. These are easy ones though.
These are good. I just make contact.
I think FDOT messaging is just, everybody knows there's construction. I mean, honestly, we can't, the messaging, it would change monthly because every month, like, so it just, again, being as smart as we possibly can with making it easier for people to cross, like we're saying, the lights with to get them across the street and be safe. I mean, that's really the best we can probably do right now, until we hear something else that,
I mean, if we could get those messaging boards at the base of the bridge, maybe along with the, yield for people in the crosswalks, we could add something about the base of the bridge, can expect delays,
yeah,
keep your eyes open, that kind of
Exactly.
thing.
and in Spanish too.
Well, you're going by I mean, the message can't be too long,
True, I just always say the Spanish
You know,
as
it
well, 'cause
scrolls, so it's not
the
like-
workers on the island right now
You only got so much time to read 'em.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
80% Spanish or Hispanic, so.
Well, if they're driving, they got their driver's license, so they must be able to understand
True.
and read signs.
Okay, survey, we already went over, do we want to go over more on it?
Yeah, I just want to make two comments here. One, we glanced over the hurricane response plan. I just wanted to mention that just
Oh, yeah, I
real
missed
quick.
that, sorry.
Of course.
My bad.
So what I'd like to propose there is that we have something underway with the forms. We talked at the last meeting that the town has done some work, and then the fire department, EOC has this new approach, and possibly using the app, with Nicole. So what I propose is that we host a meeting, just talk through with the town manager, Nicole, Chief Worth, myself, if I can coordinate that, and just align on what our plan is going into the next season. Because we had a couple of different approaches of two-way communication, and we had a lot of good learning from this past year, but just want to formalize it. Because I went on to our Fort Myers Beach website last night, and it's still kind of not clear for someone to go, okay, here's a hurricane, what do I do? There's so many different links, and I was just walking through that. I'm like, okay, we need to be a little bit more, I think, concise in what our messaging needs to be on the website, and it should point towards the direction we want to take. So I'd like to try to close this out before the next meeting, or like sometime January, coordinate a meeting, just say this is what our plan's going to be and our messaging on the website. So that's what I propose.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've looked at that too, and it's almost like it should be kind of like after the storm, a demolition permit. You had to go to 3 different spots to get 3 different pieces of paper. at least these are all in the same area, but there's really no preparation for a hurricane starts here, right? And then it's in chronological order, like, here's what you should get ready, here's what you need for your
Yeah.
hurricane kit, here's, here's where you pay attention to whatever. It should almost be like very simple one instead of having to go all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, Chief Worth is here, we can ask him if he's willing to, I think it's a great idea, you can meet with,
Yeah, so in the last meeting, we had talked about our experiences with Milton and how we had over 1,200 emails in the day of we were leaving the island for the storm, which ended up being a good thing because everybody was concerned with us having to force entry into their homes. So I believe following up on that, I support a meeting if you want to do that before this next meeting, so
Yeah.
the next 30 days.
Yeah.
I'd ask that we push it to January,
Oh,
just because the end of
absolutely.
the year's kind of booked.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we can certainly sit down and memorialize those lessons learned from the last storm.
Yeah, I can see with the information, you have hurricane prep, and then you have mandatory evacuation. These are two different animals.
Right.
And we should be able to provide some very firm guidance to people about what to do in a mandatory evacuation situation, which would hope would involve letting us know,
Yeah.
I'm gone,
Yes.
so that we don't come and,
Yeah.
yeah.
maybe, it's just listening to everybody, whatever happened with Milton, there was some obviously positive steps that worked because of your response time to have to respond to people was pretty minimal. We were able to start to get to work pretty quickly. I think, does it make sense that maybe we just create a separate hurricane response website that your information's on, our information's all one-stop shop, so that your server isn't getting overloaded with emails, that we have more than one department looking at, keeping eyes on it, saying, you guys are certainly extremely busy, as well as our town staff after a hurricane. The more eyes you can get on something, does it make sense to create a link that goes directly to, websites are very easy to design these days. It's something that could be one link on each of our websites, that link takes you to the website where all that information is categorized very easily with the app, whatever we need to do. If you want to send the email, here's the link to, send, this is where I'm going to be, or I'm leaving, or I'm not leaving. I think that would really clean some things up, but it sounds like you guys are going to have a meeting and,
I would suggest if we do this, we include county emergency management.
yes.
Because if we're talking about it, Sanibel's probably talking about it, Captiva and all the other islands.
Mhm.
So, whatever comes up, the county has a lot of resources as far as databases go and their ArcGIS platform. So, those folks are great, we work with them all the time, they build apps on the fly, sometimes same day when we come up with an idea.
Wow.
So, I would say involving county emergency management would be key to getting something that works for everybody.
Is there a
Because
way
that
that could
lets
be
us
included?
communicate with the sheriff and everybody else and share that data.
Is there a way that I could be included on that? Or us being together cause a problem? I don't know.
Well, I mean, you could do it at me. I mean, you could call a special meeting if you wanted to, and that way you would have,
Because I
meet all
know
the
we
legal
wanted to go
requirements.
to the EOC at one point in time, and then there was a problem with
Right,
all of
right.
us going together. So
Yeah,
I really want
you have
be,
to, I mean,
really
or,
wanna
or
do
you could
this.
talk to the clerk. They can advertise it that you're going to be there, that it's going to be,
Yeah, I think
An
that's all
actual
we need to do.
meeting.
We
Yeah, we
just,
just have to
Okay,
advertise it.
we just
problem-
advertise it, let them know
Okay,
they're gonna have a meeting.
but yeah, I'd like to
Yeah,
jump in on that.
Would it be worth adding it onto the back of this meeting next month?
that would make sense.
Yeah, we could do
That
that.
gives us a full month to spool up for it.
Sure.
We just have to
Sure.
have a regular
We know the
meeting and then
date.
have this, and it's public, and
Yep.
then you guys can all be
Environmental
here
smart.
together.
That's why he's the chief.
Right?
Part of the issue
Okay.
with the EOC meeting was to, just remember that had to be open to the public.
Right.
So, that was the issue, that they couldn't open the entire facility to the public just for the fact that they were a working facility and they couldn't have 911 being tied up with tours at that point. So that's what kind of shut it down with you guys going with it, because that would have to bring the public in as well. I guess we could try to work on that, but I know there was conversation at that meet, that the, emergency operation that we did at the airport about marking doors and stuff like that. We came back and forth to that, so that could be something we can speak about next time too, is
Right.
having this set up with the website.
So do we need to, we just need to let, who do we need to let know that we'll add it to the back of this meeting? Should I just add it to the
assume
agenda?
Jason-
Alright,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
tell Jason.
January 22nd.
Yep.
Would be the date.
I'm gonna have you,
And you're gonna have Jason then reach out to the county and the Lee County Sheriff's Office as well,
mhm,
so everybody's on the,
Yep.
knows
On
that
that
they're,
got it.
And we can
exactly, I want you to, well, email Jason.
22nd, is that the next date?
Chief, we have a fire board meeting scheduled for the
So that's the 22nd.
What happened on the
22nd
21st?
at the same time.
Did we not?
Is it the 21st or the 22nd?
I'm showing.
Oh, we've got a town meeting on the 21st.
And the fire board has a meeting, at the same time as the public safety meeting on the 22nd.
So you're moving next month's to a Wednesday?
Have to because of them.
Got it.
I think, we have it, yeah, on
It's their
Wednesday the
fault.
22nd.
It's their fault, yeah.
That's because Monday is a holiday. Monday's
Gotcha.
Martin Luther King Day.
Gotcha.
So Keenan and I won't be here for public safety on the 22nd because we'll be at the fire board meeting.
If you wanna do this next month, is it possible to move this meeting? a
We
day?
can move our meeting, maybe we'll make it,
Okay.
after,
You have to give,
Move it to the
Yeah.
23rd.
Check with Amy.
Yeah.
yeah,
just
you're gonna have to
make
check
sure
with the
that there's-
scheduling here.
Thank you for that, I didn't realize
Yeah.
this meeting was moved to the Wednesday next month. Thank you.
23rd's pretty open, but I don't know what the town's calendar looks like, so.
What's that, Thursday? I don't have anything on mine, but
Yeah,
I don't,
have anything on mine either.
Thursdays are usually MMP meetings for us, but we don't have it, ours is at the beginning of the month, not the third week, so.
alright, so I'll
What's our
get her after
proposal?
this and ask her.
Proposal's the January 23rd.
I don't have my next month calendar updated for the TDC. That could be the only potential conflict I have, but I don't necessarily have to be here. I can
I
always
would
watch
just
it.
ask if when Jason's putting this together, to get it out sooner than later, so
Okay.
the
Yeah.
parties have time, if there's any pre-work that we're gonna do before the meeting.
Alright, I'll grab them after this meeting.
I'll get,
Great.
no, I'll
Nice
grab
looking.
Jason,
Okay.
I'll get the stuff out, Scott.
Okay.
So, okay, so that was for hurricane response. The last piece was a survey. Last meeting, we just talked about it for anyone watching. Survey that was conducted in May, there was, a few questions that we were all going to think about, as far as moving forward with some type of ownership and seeing if anyone has interest in leading kind of a subcommittee underneath some of these. One question was around feeling informed about what is happening to improve safety on Fort Myers Beach. So this is more about marketing. What are the things that we're doing to improve? The response there was like 60 to 40, so only 40% of people know what's happening. So we thought that was an area of, and I didn't know if anyone was interested in taking that one on.
I can work with those things, POI,
Or
PIO.
and then there's second one, know how to report public safety findings. That was low as well, even though we had on the website, it shows report a concern. People just don't know to go to the website and click on that, so that's part of the marketing as well. Willing to participate in neighborhood watch programs, so
I thought that was low.
it was 30% said yes.
We have it already, I think
Yeah.
we've got Neighborhood Watch, and I know the neighborhoods that have wanted to be on it have been on it.
Okay.
Um,
Any way to formalize that?
well, there's a way, I think
Okay.
it's on the website right now, if you wanna be on, if you want a Neighborhood Watch, I mean, again, that's marketing and letting them know. I'll talk to, we'll go from there, I'll handle the marketing part.
And then there was just one action that I had after, Jim had asked a question about the prioritization of what people said in their open comments. And, what we learned was that 46% said lighting was a priority and that they had open comments of improving lighting. 46%, half the people, over 300, 379 responses, 46% of them said lighting, lighting, lighting. So I know that project's underway. I went digging through the website. I did find kind of this graph of what's happening in the plans. I'm an engineer and I'm trying to work through like exactly what they're doing. So I think for general population, that might be a little bit complicated. Just say, okay, where are they gonna be at a certain point, and maybe it's not even updated. So I was wondering if we can do something simple on the website, just to communicate where it's going above ground and where are we now, and just have, just an easy way to track the progress, because half the people are saying we want lighting, where is this project? And then we need to be a little bit more proactive in sharing, hey, we're making progress, look at, we're at this street, and you can just show like little green dots making its way down the island of like, okay, this is where we are now. So just going back to the marketing and public safety, these are the things that our town's asking for, and the more we could be proactive in sharing that, the better, we would be. So that was mostly half the people. 21% police presence and enforcement on and off the beach. A lot of comments about speeding. That was one of the things that I should have mentioned earlier with Lieutenant here, was that, there was a lot of comments about, great, we see him on Estero, but we don't see anyone in the back streets. So police presence in the back streets as well as Estero was important, as well as definitely rangers were welcomed on the beach side. They appreciate that. They just like to see more of it. So that was 21%. The rest of the numbers, 6% on the crosswalks. They really like the blinking lights around crosswalks, or just lights where the crosswalks are. 8% on bike lanes, 2% on sidewalks and sidewalk repairs, 4% on traffic, and 12% other. Other including like homeless people, and other jaywalking, those types of things. So just to give you some stats behind all the open comments that we received, but predominantly police presence and enforcement on and off the beach, and definitely lighting.
Can I throw something on the enforcement thing? I just did a length of the island bike ride yesterday, day before. And just between Sea Grape and Publix, going down, heading south, I had to go out into the traffic lane because there were not road construction, but private construction vehicles parked, half the truck filling the bike lane, the other half of the truck filling our sidewalks. You can't go up and down this island without seeing that a dozen times. And, I mean, it's like the Wild West down there sometimes. As soon as you get past Sea Grape, it's like, you can do whatever you want.
To speak to that, we've upped our enforcement on the sidewalk parking, for the safety of the bikes, but also ADA requirements. So the sidewalks have to be clear. So matter of fact, when they just saw me talk to my ranger, she just got tasked to hit the south end again. So that was part of her call for service. Her first call for service is to hit Estero all the way up and down, clear the sidewalks. And we move them if we can, get them onto private property, or we write tickets, just so you know. And the SO is also on that. I spoke to Commander Lauer, I spoke to Lieutenant Chitwood, and they are also enforcing that as well. So it's become an issue in the past couple of weeks where it's gotten even worse.
Yeah,
So-
and with all the people that are
Yeah.
heading down here in a couple of weeks for
So
the next 3 months,
We're
that's gonna be
attacking the
bad.
construction workers, for the most part, that's who it is.
Yeah.
I say attacking, I don't mean.
Addressing.
Yeah,
Addressing.
we're addressing the situation.
Educating.
Sorry, it's a background issue.
Enlightening.
So, we are dealing with it, we're addressing it more aggressively right now, just for the safety issue, as you're speaking. I just wanted you to know that we are working on that, with the SO as well.
Yeah, because I don't remember yet seeing a Ranger cart or an LCSO car at any one of these doing anything.
Okay.
So,
Well-
I know it's hit and miss, but
No, I
mean,
get that.
to never once see in the last couple of months a
Agreed.
single incident of somebody trying to do something about it leads one to believe there's not a whole lot being done about
I
it.
got it, by all means, and in the last 2 weeks, we have it up, just to be very clear, okay?
Great, that's good news.
Okay. Member items, I guess we've got this new item that someone handed out, but I don't know how to read it.
It's kind of sort of mine from the last meeting, talking
Okay.
about money, because all this stuff is lots and lots, it's all good stuff, but it all costs money. So a couple months ago, after we first started talking about this, I just went online and I found this website, which lists all sorts of available funds to incorporate into a community which wants to drive bicycle traffic.
Okay.
And I think, given everybody's complaint is about automobile traffic, one way to alleviate a lot of that is put people on bicycles. But you gotta make it safe, so that includes signage and painting and all sorts of stuff. And I've just learned today that the county is involved with the sidewalks, cause it seemed like a Fort Myers Beach thing that we would stripe, sign, whatever along the sidewalks. ride left, walk right, like the airport walkways like that. So getting the message out there, how do we get that money? It's right here. And
I think what we need to do is when we're looking at doing this formal request,
you know,
because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We need to write the paperwork, write that up, and then we need, if we can get a few more, maybe pick and choose, I mean, there's a lot of data, but if we could pick 2 or 3 things that go hand in hand with what we're talking about, this formal request, such as crosswalks for pedestrians, pedestrian refuge islands, new or retrofit, encouragement of education activities, for safe access. I mean, there's certain ones in here that we could, awareness programs, painting, it's listed on here.
right.
Maybe we say, these are 2 that we've highlighted, or 3, and where you find them is this, and they have staff there that goes and looks for grants or whatever. We could say, you know, these are some places where you can get
Well, the
financial,
the purpose of my putting this in and bringing this here anyway is because if we're gonna write the county, whether it's Commissioner Mullica or anyone else at the county level, and they're gonna come back with, well, it's not in the budget.
Who's
Well,
gonna pay for it? Right.
it's money right here, and we get ahead of that in an email or correspondence with the county commission, go, well, funny you should mention that, because there's money right here.
I think, just my suggestion is I
Please.
would go through, is reading through this, which ones pertain to exactly what you're talking about, the
Exactly. That's
bicycles?
what I was saying, yeah.
And then
Absolutely.
drill down on each one of those
That's what I was
as to what are we actually eligible for?
Yeah.
So instead of looking at 2 pages, are we really looking at just 3
5
potential
things.
grants that we could be going for?
That's what I was thinking.
Cause that's something, cause if you send this to the county,
Oh, I know.
we're gonna, they're gonna put it over here
Thanks.
with, we'll get to
Yeah.
that in a bit, you know?
Yeah, we'll file
Whereas
that.
if you have 3 specific links saying, here are potential funding opportunities that we have done the work on,
Right.
shown that if we qualify for those, we meet the requirements. Now, that takes away the question that you said, Karen, about how are we gonna pay for this?
Right.
But we can't, and most of this stuff, like the painting of the sidewalks, and it's not expensive. It's
Right.
No.
in the grand scheme of things, it's fairly, I mean, and it's things that maybe could be used, we'd have to talk to the finance department, but maybe short-term rental fees could be allocated to that. Maybe it's something from parking fees that could be allocated to that. I think there's an opportunity for the town to be able to pay for some minimal things like the markings, but we need approval from the county to say, go ahead and do it,
Right.
which they haven't given us to this point. So that's why
Okay.
you don't see the green markings up and down.
Why don't we just ask for forgiveness after?
That doesn't always work, especially when you're asking for something down the road.
Right.
They've been, the county has been very, very good in the past, at least as long as I've been involved, with helping us any way that we can and any request that we can. We've talked to them about lighting, especially in that stretch right there on Estero Boulevard that we talked about at the curve. The issue is with right-of-way. There's getting power there to get, I mean, it's gonna be part of the overall lighting concept once it's done. But temporary, to be able to go in and temporarily do something, there's a bunch of legal beagle stuff you gotta do with the landowners to be able to use their property, to be able to put light poles on, and it's not as easy as just even putting a temporary light out there that you're gonna fire up from sun rental. It's a lot of legal beagle stuff, which doesn't mean it can't be done, it's just,
If you're talking about off.
it's not as easy as just setting it up in the backyard and turning it on.
To speak to lighting too, just to be very clear, I know it's a big concern for citizens, so you'll see that there's some lighting poles that are damaged since the hurricane began, some came down. The town manager had ordered us to do a survey, I'm assuming it came from the council. We did a survey of all the broken lights, that was taken, we did it with code and rangers, and that was sent to FPL, so that they have that list of those damaged lights, just so you know, with their pole numbers and everything else, so it's something that they have to square away on the Estero at the least.
Well, the ones that are hanging precariously, I think, should be addressed pretty darn quick. and I'm
Those are
shocked.
the major ones.
We
Those-
sent that out, I think a month ago now, that was sent to them by the town manager.
I haven't been all the way up and down the island. I don't know, have they been repaired or if they're
No.
not all of them?
They'd fixed a couple, and there's still some hanging, there's still some laying on the ground, so I know that there's probably a massive task order that they have in the whole thing, but we did send that to them about a month ago.
Karen, why don't you go through this and
I
you
will.
try to dial down a little more based
Yeah.
on what, I mean, it's kinda common sense what we've been saying, and then we can commingle it with what we're doing on our formal request and go from
Okay.
there.
Will do.
That's your job. Okay,
Copy that.
Any other member items? Let's start with member items or reports.
Well, I'll start right here. I just, especially with Dan being here, is there any movement towards the town? We have a beach 7 miles long up and down. We're trying to get people off of the roads and use their bicycles, especially coming up now with season coming in and wanting to go up and grab a dinner or something. It'd be nice to use pedal-assisted e-bike on the hard packed beach. Is there any movement at all to start to allow that at all?
Well, the conversation kind of, again, it hasn't been voted on yet, but the conversation was, at least my understanding of it was to allow them on the sidewalks, but not on the beach. There was some pushback from council members that didn't feel it was a good idea to allow them on the beach. So at this point, I don't know that that's gonna happen. Again, when we talk about it, hopefully in January, we can revisit it, but at the M&P, it didn't sound like there was a lot of positivity about having them on the beach.
Yeah, we have all this stuff. We want to paint the sidewalks. We want to do this. We want to do that. And we've got a beach that's just sitting there that, the majority of the people would be safe and ways to allow the residents to be able to say as a resident, I paid $25 to the town. I get a marker on there. I'm riding up and down the beach. Rental places say they wouldn't have that. So then the rangers would know who's a resident, who's not. I guess that's my main thing is just looking for the residents to be able to get around the island during season on an e-bike easier.
I think if that's something that, I don't disagree that that's not a bad idea at all. I think if it's something that you put together and you bring it to the council as a recommendation, that has a lot more weight than me just saying, this is what we talked about. If you make a formal recommendation, then it has to be addressed, right? Not that it doesn't if you bring it up, but if you have done the work and you think it's gonna be safe and that's your task as this committee and you bring it forward as a recommendation, then we'll talk about it. It has not been voted on, so it's not that it's not going to happen. I'm just telling you, there was at least one council member that said they were a hard no on allowing the bikes on the beach, so.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, because I know we've talked about it over and over again, and it just kind of lingers out there. And
The concern was mostly around children, children aren't paying attention, and if they're down on vacation and the parents are sitting there and the kids get up and take off running, that, it might not be the fault of the e-bike person who's doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Say you're allowed to ride in the hard sand, the 4 or 5-year-old child doesn't know that, right? And if they come running and you're zinging by at 20 miles an hour, that was the big safety concern, so, which I think we all understand. We all
which
get
is
that point.
exactly the same safety concern when you're using a regular bicycle as well. So yeah.
That was brought up as well.
Yeah.
There are people that can bike pretty fast without an electric bike, but as we've all talked about, there are people that need pedal assist to
I
be
do.
able to ride even on the hard pavement.
Yeah.
To be able to, sometimes the wind, you see, it's not easy
It's
sometimes.
amazing. It's so flat, but just a little bit of a wind. And
Yeah, the
you're-
pedal assist helps, so.
Yeah.
I know, there's different classifications of bikes, and I think Sanibel has different rules for different classifications of bikes. But again, they have a police force, we do not, so enforcing something is gonna be very difficult to do, but doesn't mean they couldn't put restrictions on it, a class 1 bike or whatever, that you have to pedal or there's no electric assist. So if someone's just cruising down the beach and their feet aren't moving, that's probably not the right classification of a bike that's supposed to be on the beach. And code enforcement can stop them and say, you need to
easy
get
to
out to
see.
the beach, right?
Yeah.
I think that's everything I'm hearing. If it's something that you can visually see where you don't have to radar gun things, it's not subjective, right? It's something that you can physically see. I could see a guy going down the sidewalk or going down the beach without pedaling, doing 20 miles an hour. I know that's not a pedal assist bike.
Yeah.
We get wind, but not that much wind.
All right. So I was still up for discussion.
It's still up for discussion, yep.
Okay. That's
And-
all I got.
And then when it's on the agenda, obviously, being a committee member, you're more than welcome to come out and speak at public comment. If your committee members give you the authority to speak on their behalf, then you could certainly do that. Doesn't have to be necessarily a formal letter, but or
Okay.
you can speak just as a resident, either way.
All right, thank you.
Do we have an idea time-wise when we might begin to see additional lighting appear on Estero Boulevard up and down the whole street?
That's what we're
Well,
talking
yeah.
about.
I know, this didn't help me.
No, it doesn't, it doesn't.
That's the one we might actually see.
It doesn't, we can only update as we get updates from, I believe most of the underground conduit work is done along Estero Boulevard. And what you'll now start seeing, I think, Ron, close to your house, you
Yeah.
see they're putting up the bases, right? There's like where the lights are gonna sit. So, obviously the underground work goes first, then they put the bases in, then they test the electric, then the pole goes on, then the light goes on. So it's not gonna be all underground work, then all bases, then all lights or poles, you're going to see different stages of it from the south to the north. I haven't been by your place to see if they've got the bases in there
The
yet.
bases
but
are not in yet, the wires all.
Are
run in.
sticking up,
Yeah.
and now they're going in to put the connection boxes
The
in.
connection boxes are there.
Yeah,
Just
and
the concrete base for the poles not.
not there yet, yeah. So to answer your question, no, I don't have that. They say that they're still on schedule. There was an issue, I haven't gotten an update this week yet, with FDEP was giving FPL a problem. We sent it off to our representatives up at the state to help push from the top down. They did get a response fairly quickly that way. So they addressed the questions again that they had through FDEP. But as of this week, I haven't gotten an update that part of the permit is signed off on.
Okay.
But I'll make sure I get with Andy this week and get something out on the website, either through PIO, to give an update as to what percentage of the work is done. Are we still on schedule? What are the dates you're still shooting for? So that at least people have an idea. I know it's hard. You keep saying it's coming, right? It's like what's going to happen first, the pier or the lights. It's coming. A lot of the underground work that's being done. Obviously, you don't until you see it coming out of the ground, you don't realize that it's being done. But all the infrastructure work is going on. Obviously, we all know the water leak that happened. That was caused by the contractor doing the lighting work along Estero Boulevard, bored a hole through the water main and caused that heck of a mess we had there from Baymar, Bayview, whichever it was there, but
Is most of the drilling on the bay side of the road or on?
both.
Both.
So there's actually on the website, and I'll see if I can get them to share that link. It's a much better map than that. It'll show you exactly where every light pole is gonna go on both sides, the crosswalks. Now, they may move a little bit depending on, like, for instance, there's one, if you look at the master plan their permit plan that they have, there's a light pole right in the middle of the entrance to Margaritaville's pool. So obviously, that's gonna have to move, right? But they just look at the street as a whole, they do their photometric study. How are we gonna get that 1 foot candle of coverage from sidewalk to sidewalk? This is where we need a pole. Now, again, that one's gonna have to move, and there's gonna be instances where they're going to have to move a little bit in one direction or the other. But I think it's 60-some pages. It shows you the side streets, it shows you everything on there that you can see, okay, here's my street, I know where I'm gonna have poles.
So the new lighting is likely to appear on both sides of the street.
It will be on both sides of the street, yes. Because there was actually two designs. Again, the county agreed before the storm to illuminate the crosswalks. So they had to have their own design for the crosswalks and their own permitting for the crosswalks. It's still FPL and their contractors doing the work. And then we took over and through the state appropriations, we did the entire rest of the boulevard and the side streets. So there were two projects technically going on at the same time that they had to kind of marry together. So yes, there'll be lights on both sides of the street. They will be shielded, they'll be amber. If you want to get an idea of what it's going to look like, just go to Margaritaville Crescent Street light at night. That's essentially what you're going to see. It's those are 8 bulbs versus 6 bulbs, but if you want to see exactly how Estero Boulevard is going to look like, that's a pretty good example of what you're going to see from sidewalk to sidewalk down the entire island. And anybody that's driven through there, I mean, yes, it's amber. No, it's not pretty. It's definitely not, what I think the fire department and or the police department would like to see. But because of where we live, that's a requirement that we have to do. So we did meet the Florida Department of Transportation's safety needs with the 1 foot candle, and it did meet the environmental standards. Again, I've never been an amber fan. It's ugly light. It's not pretty, but it does provide the safety that's needed through FDOT's requirements to be able to illuminate the back of the sidewalk to the back of the sidewalk. So go take a look at it if you haven't had a chance. Most people aren't down there at night, but when the traffic congestion's done, just take your bike ride down and it's illuminated. It's pretty bright.
Okay.
And if you have a really strong stomach, you can drive down by CVS, 7-Eleven, and Santini Plaza at night. Everything is red and
Yeah,
yellow and
that's all,
amber.
that's
It's
from the store
atrocious.
over there, right?
The store is pretty red, yeah. That's it.
Yeah,
store
that's
is
their
red,
choice
red.
of color.
Oh, I don't think it was their choice. I think it was a requirement. Then now it was maybe a different color of amber. I mean, or a different
That's
hue,
the
I
reddest
guess.
amber I've ever seen.
It is very
Yeah.
red, yes.
We've got the more yellow amber that
Yeah.
we put up during turtle season, cause we're just up the street from them, and I mean, you look down there and it's very red.
Very red. It sticks out. You know where the gas station is.
Yes, you do. You can find it. Well, I left a message with Chad, cause they bored through our irrigation system the other day, and now every time it comes on, it fills their box up with water, and they're
The
not gonna like
FPL
that.
contractor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get a hold of them and have them come back out and take a look at it.
Yeah, it's, and anybody that's been around boring knows that's, things like that are gonna happen. I mean, things aren't where they were supposed to be, or they didn't get mapped out right, or,
Right.
you know,
Well,
things happen.
Irrigation's never where it's supposed to be.
but- You don't say.
Okay, that's all I had, thank you.
Just one build was, we did talk about FDOT and said there's someone from the town actually goes to meetings on Thursdays. Is any way we could have that person give us an update? Our next January 22nd
I
or
don't know
twenty-third
who's
meeting?
doing those meetings right now, I was not asked.
I don't know. I'd have to get with Andy. I'll ask him who's been sitting in on those meetings, or if they have been sitting on the meetings.
Okay.
But I know, I wanna say it was Thursday. Don't hold me to that. Maybe they have changed it, but they have a production meeting every week to give updates as to where they're at. I'll check with Andy, and I didn't know if Tom was on it or not, but it sounds like he was not, so.
Okay.
I'll ask him who is sitting in on these meetings or who isn't, but
Yeah.
if they have, I'll ask them to come and give an update.
That'd be great.
Mhm.
That's all I had.
I was gonna keep moving, but quick question, do we have, are we still tearing down buildings? They're on the docket and everything, we've got some new ones coming down, cause I know there's,
They are.
Okay,
That was
good.
part of the meeting, town council, so I'm probably gonna let the mayor speak to that a little bit, but from a code side and the building department
Yep.
side, we are still moving forward on red tagging.
good,
We have, the council just signed in the appellate, the appeals process for some of that, which was a needed leg to move forward with some of this, which now brings it back to the magistrate and to the county for appeals. We have, matter of fact, Neptune is speaking of that just this morning. We spoke to the health department about that, and they were here yesterday in the meeting, and they said that they're gonna move forward with their own demo here in the next 2 weeks, I think he
Fabulous.
said, correct?
Well, he said to expect it to be nice, clean, pristine ground by the end of the first quarter of 2025.
So, that, they were pushing it to make
what
it
about
happen.
Wyndham?
So-
You want me to take
That's
that
the
one?
I will let you
Yeah.
take that, Mr. Mayor.
So
That's the big one everybody's getting. about.
we understand from what yesterday, we were told that they have hired their own demolition company. We have gone through the process to be able to do it ourselves. I believe the attorney said, and I believe I specifically asked, 30 days from yesterday, if it's not down, the town does have the authority to go in and tear it down. We've already received a price to do
Good.
that. So, trust me, we all hear you, and
Oh, I know,
if it's not gone in 30 days, you'll see bulldozers.
awesome.
It's coming down one way or another.
It needs to, okay. Well, so you're on top of everybody else, I'm not gonna bring up any of the other ones, so.
Yeah, we've been on all of them. Wyndham was one we've been working on for months. We had good coordination and we felt we had good cooperation from the owners of that facility, and then that kind of, they stepped back a little bit. They did what we asked initially to make the building safe, and the thought process that they were gonna bring it down sooner than later, and that didn't happen, so then we progressed to the other side.
Perfect,
And, we're moving forward on that. So
Yeah,
that, the Neptune was the next one that was gonna be having that happen, so.
exactly. Well, enough's enough.
Most have come into compliance
They have.
since we've started the process. We haven't had to take one down yet. The closest one, I think, was the
Tropical
tropical,
sunset.
that we were, I think, a day away from our bulldozers being in there, and they took
Good.
it down themselves. so.
The property owner on that did not take that serious, to be very clear, until we went through this process and said, we're going to do it, and then it's gonna be attached to you as a bill from the town.
Right,
And, then that seemed to start the fire, and they got it done, which was great.
Awesome.
My guess is, I haven't seen any of the quotes, but my guess is it's probably cheaper to do it yourself
Yeah,
than have the government come and do it for you and attach it to your tax bill.
exactly.
Most people don't like seeing that letter saying that it's gonna be attached to your tax bill.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad. Okay, that was all my only thing. Everything else we talked about.
All I have is the grant proposal sheet that I put forth, and I got my work cut out for me.
Yeah, you did.
Thanks.
Nothing? All right, Dan, anything?
Not that I can think of. I think we covered most of it today.
I know. All right, everybody got some marching orders. Public comment? Nothing. Next meeting agenda, I will go talk to Amy about the date. We'll email everybody and check your times. And that's it. Meeting adjourned. Are we in favor of adjourn the meeting? Make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make it.
Someone second it? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.